For those of you that don't know, Nick normally has a beautiful golden locks of hair that is the envy of almost anybody that comes across. So what's the story behind the shave, buddy?
You know, sometimes you just need a pattern interrupt, Rock. And I'm down here in Panama. I'm trapped, if you will. Not too upset about it, but I just wanted to change things up and get some sun on my head, and shaved it and felt lighter, and it'll grow back, right?
Yeah, no, it looks great. You got a great head. You know, I was golfing with the doctor yesterday, and he talked about that 90% of this would be solved if people got more vitamin D. And I'm like,
I had
really?
the same. So I've been struggling this winter with my emotions, and I'm such an, I'm the guy that controls my emotions. And I realized when I got down here that vitamin D, like instantly all the building blocks for me to experience joy, gratitude, excitement was here in the sun. And in the Midwest and in Canada, we don't experience that for 6 months out of the year. And it can be really hard on the system for sure.
Yeah, so I really want to thank you for taking the time to come and join us. Just, pro bono, hanging out and having a conversation. And I'm really looking forward to some of the tips and tricks that you're going to give the people. Before we do that, I want to talk a little bit statistics. I did a little bit of research, and I just wanted to know for myself. So here are the stats. Is so far, and this is as of about a day ago, so it may have changed. Don't hang on to all the stats. I'm not a statistician, but they just give you a general trend. There have been 0 deaths in children 10 and under, and the death rate between people, adults, children, 10 to 39 is 0.02. From 40 to 49 is 0.04. From 50 to 59, 1.3. From 60 to 70, 3.6. From 70 to 80, 8%. And 80 and above, 15%. And it really goes in line with your health, your respiratory system, et cetera, your ability to cope. Now, this is not new. There are 12 other major viruses that affect our system, such as smallpox, Ebola, rabies, HIV, hantavirus, influenza, dengue, rotavirus, SARS, MERS. These are all out there still, and they're killing people at a very high level, and we don't necessarily have the right antidote for all of them. Dengue, for instance, 2.5% of people die, even though 50 to 100 million a year are affected by it, mostly in Indonesia and places like that. So it seems like for some reason, they've decided to make this the star of the century. And for some reason, we're all running for, cover. And I get it. But what are your thoughts just off the top of the media, the way they've attacked this? Because somebody like Tom Hanks got it and came out and has recovered from it. And I don't see that posted anywhere. I'd love to see him getting on there and say, hey guys, this is what I went through. This is what I experienced. Yes, it's like a flu. I feel great. And start to promote some of that. So what are your thoughts, Nick?
Well, for one, I think the media has an incentive to keep you trapped in this fear-based emotion where you're tuning into them every day, right? People are tuned into to the news more than ever right now. And it's important to remember that we don't analyze statistics properly, right? Our brains are not evolved to think, oh, the likelihood of me getting this and dying are almost nil, right? So we think emotionally. We see people with gas masks. We see hospital beds filled. We see, somebody's grandmother just died, and all of a sudden our system kicks in all these fear-based emotions and we start to freak out, right? So the media hypnotizes us. So hypnosis is basically you create an emotion and then you give a suggestion. And so they're creating all of these fear-based emotions. Our bodies are locked up. We're having all of these, panics going on in the markets, in our homes, in our bodies even. One of my coaching clients who's a young entrepreneur, and he's doing amazing. Anyway, he's very suggestible. He's highly hypnotizable. And so he texted me the other day and was like, I've been puking for the last 2 days. I'm sick. Like, I'm worried. And I was like, listen, puking is not even one of the symptoms of this. I'm like, you've been watching the news. That fear gets into your system. Your body thinks I must be sick, and it's creating that response. Now, for most of us, it's a little more subtle than that. But that's what happens. Like, our reticular activating system thinks we cough once and all of a sudden we have this life-threatening illness, right?
Yeah, well, we're looking for it, right? We're trying to protect ourselves. So we're looking, oh, did I, like, you're around somebody and they sneeze and you're like, oh, you know? So they've trained us to be hyper sensitive to this. And there was years ago in the outback in Australia that they banned stick pointing because there was such a strong belief amongst the natives there that if somebody shook a stick at you and they were a witch doctor, that within 72 hours you would die. And it actually happened because the belief was so strong, they would then excrete acid in their body and they would die from the inside. So I want to just revisit what you said about this because I think it's important. Create an emotion. So they're creating an emotion of fear.
Correct.
And they're suggesting, and what are some of the things they're suggesting?
Well, they're suggesting the economy is going to tank, which, obviously that's sort of happening. I don't think it's, in the long run, I think we're going to look back and it's going to be a blip on the radar. They're suggesting that everyone's going to get it. They're suggesting, your likelihood of dying is way higher than it is, that your business needs to shut down. And, some of that's okay and it's going to protect us. But in a way, like statistically, this is not any different than H1N1 or a lot of these other diseases, in my opinion. And I'm still trying to find the truth. Now, another thing to remember is that what you focus on, you feel, and what you feel becomes your reality. So they're shaping our perceptual filters, just like putting different colored sunglasses on. When you put that fear-based sunglass on, you're going to see fear everywhere, right? Like those rose-colored glasses. And so it's important to remember that your perceptions of reality is not reality, right? None of us really know what's going on. Most of us have these fear-shaded sunglasses that we see everything from that perspective. And so to do the right things in the market, to lead your family, it's important for you to take those sunglasses off and put empowering certain sunglasses on so that you can be a leader in your world.
So how are you doing? Because I'll tell you what, I have done an inventory of my assets and I've had to extrapolate if my business, like one of my businesses at a real estate office, we've closed it, we've shut it down. I still have to pay rent. I'm still paying employees. Mm-hmm. They're working remotely, but maybe not as producing as much. Sales are going to go down. And I've crossed that bridge of how much money do I have in the bank to keep myself afloat? Have you had that experience in your mind as well?
Absolutely. I'm in and out of it all day, right? I'm human. And I think it's important to remember that state of certainty is not certainty that you know what's going to happen or certainty that you're always going to make the right decision. It's certainty that you're going to find a way or you're going to make a way, right? And I know no matter what happens, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to find the resourcefulness inside of me by being in the right state, by surrounding myself with the right people, having the right mindset, that when the decision comes, when I'm ready to make decisions, it's going to be empowered decisions. They might not be perfect. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm not going to worry about it because I know I'm going to find the way through this and maybe even be better off, more emotionally resilient. My business is going to get stronger. And knowing that nothing can mess with you, right? That doesn't mean you're not going to have some ups and downs along the way. Like that's what it means to be human. But to control your focus, to control your inner dialogue, your questions, of course, your body language, all of those things affect your state.
So you and I have hung out together in a mastermind environment. We talked about rule number 10, right? Make it happen no matter what. And I'm inviting anybody who has a question or a comment for Nick, because in the last 3 years, I've watched him become an expert at a lot of things he just mentioned. And I think it's really good to have some triggers when you go into worry or fear or doubt, because that's probably some of the predominant emotions.
Yes.
For me, what I do is I do like a little gratitude dance, or I do a little mantra around things that I want to move toward, or I jump, I do 10 push-ups, little things when I find myself getting sucked in a little bit and thinking, oh, this isn't going to work, what have you. I've also started just doing half an hour, 45-minute little stints of deeply going through different parts of my house. So that closet that I haven't gone through, that garage, that box, that cupboard. And maybe because I'm Dutch or something and my mother cleaned a lot, I don't know. But it feels good to purge and do something active that I've being put off. So what are some things people can do so their mindset, I mean, we talk about being certain, but how do you get to that? Because most people need a tool or a trigger.
Yeah, so that's what I want to cover, and that's kind of what I specialize in. The first thing is to be aware of your body language. Well, actually, before that, it's important to remember that you are not your thoughts and you're not your emotions, right? It's just like tuning into a radio. You can change the channel. So there's a few variables that we're going to talk about right now to go from a state of fear and doubt to a state of certainty. And the first way is to control your body, right? Physiology first. Rocky, you're a master of this. I learned so much from you in this area. One thing is our breath. When we are fearful, we breathe shallow. So just being aware by breathing deeply and relaxed, right? Our posture, big posture means confidence. And so just to put yourself in a state of big posture will change your emotions. It'll change your thoughts. It'll change your actions. And the next one is a smile. Rocky, you always just put this huge, silly smile on your face. And I know your emotions match that, right? So big posture, deep breaths, big smile on your face. Even if it seems faked, eventually it will feel real if you stick with it long enough. The next one is movement, right? And yoga does all of these things really well, our posture, our breath, our movement. By moving confidently and certainly, by moving in an excited way, you'll tap into those emotions. And I know when I was struggling a few years ago, you and I did this push-up contest, and I would stop throughout the day and do push-ups, and then I would stand up, and my emotions were totally different, just by something that simple, by putting blood flow through my muscles and standing tall. Afterwards, my emotions were different, my actions were different. So the first one is body language. And the next one is the people you spend your time with, right? So I'm spending my time with guys like you, with guys that are excited about this, with people that aren't negative. Every time I get onto Facebook, if someone's got these negative fear-based posts, I'm like, unfollow, I don't need you in my life. And that doesn't mean you don't be informed, but if people are putting a negative, fearful spin on it, you got to get them out of your life, right? So
Yeah. So just on that one, if I could jump in.
Absolutely.
What if you're with family, and we also have a question that'll piggyback this one on, is you're with family and they're negative and they're fearful and they're running a pattern and they've run it for a long time. They're just a highly fear-based person, right? There's different people that run different programs. Their emotional home. Mine generally is optimistic, a little bit Pollyanna sometimes, but what about the people that are negative? How do you help those people around you that you're stuck in a freaking house with?
Yeah, that's a good point. Luckily, I'm down here with Chris Crawford, so we're having a great and positive experience. But one thing is, people crave certainty right now, and like we talked about, having certainty in your body language, having certainty of your emotions. You can influence people in a time of uncertainty by being more certain than them. If they're certain that the world is falling apart, you have to have more certainty that everything's going to be okay. So the way that I influence is what I believe is hypnotic influence. Is you get into rapport with somebody, you have more certainty than them, and then you guide their focus. So, hey, Rock, I know this is a challenging time. I know you're struggling with this. You're worried, right? I'm getting into rapport with you. I'm getting onto your level. But think about it this way. This diseases like this happen all the time. We always come out of this stronger. We're going to be fine. There's going to be opportunities. I'm shifting your focus. I'm having more certainty. And pretty soon the people in your world will feel that certainty. They'll see you as the source of that certainty. And you're going to be a leader in your business, in your home, and in your community.
Awesome. So you've got a lot around the body, a lot around movement. What about some things around inner narrative, this conversation you have with yourself? What can we do there?
Yeah, so our language is huge, right? When we say words, those words go into our nervous system, into our endocrine system, and they change the way that we feel, which changes, that radio station of thoughts we're tuned into. So it's very important, as you know, to ask yourself the right questions, to ask empowering questions, and even to change words. Like, we keep saying the word pandemic, right? Maybe there's like a better word that we can use that doesn't seem so like catastrophic, right?
Right.
Just a little situation,
little
right?
Bug.
That changes.
Little bug.
Yeah, a little bug is going around. It changes the way that we feel about it, which changes our actions and our emotions. So some empowering questions. How can I serve? Right? How can I serve in this situation? Takes the focus off of you onto other people. Your emotions will change just by asking that question. So by finding an opportunity to influence, another great question is, what opportunities exist right now that weren't here 30 or 60 days ago, right? In changing times, there's always opportunities presented. And by asking yourself, what are those opportunities? Your mind will start to find them. That's how our mind works. So asking those questions are great. Rock, doing incantations is a great way to change that inner narrative. You know that, right? Like, I am powerful. Am I freezing?
No, you're good.
I'm powerful. I'm certain. I'm confident. I'm going to get through this. I'm excited about this. I'm going to lead my family. I'm going to lead my community. Just by telling yourself that, you override that fear and doubt pattern in yourself. The emotions and the feelings in your body will change. Your perceptual filters, the way you see the world and the way you take action in this situation will be 180 degrees different, just like that.
Amazing stuff. Great stuff. Hope you guys are enjoying this. By the way, keep on posting and engage. Let's make this like a live seminar where you can post things. You can jot down some of the notes that Nick is putting out there as a place for other people to see what you're capturing is something that seems to be important, or maybe commit to something he's saying. Like maybe you want to have your own incantation. And by the way, for those of you that aren't sure what an incantation is, basically an affirmation or a choice of words that you're going to put together, said out loud, ideally with movement. Because as Nick said, your body is an antenna. Your body is a big part of your communication with yourself and others. So if you speak it and move it, just think of a child maybe who goes, I'm so happy, yay, right? They don't go, I'm so happy. It doesn't have the same effect. So I think it's a really good time to maybe be playful and silly a little bit more than you might, to bring some lightness to this. And one of the things that works for me, Nick, is I sometimes look back on things that happened to me 2-3 years ago that were at the time catastrophic. Like,
yes,
losing $200,000 in an investment because I didn't do my due diligence. And at the time, rage went through my body and I was like ready to strangle people. And to think that later, I'm still alive. I'm still good. I got over it. So we will get over this. This too shall pass. But if you can bring that into your body and then start to future pace yourself in a way that you're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, I got through this great. I made some really great decisions. I was light. I worked my ass off. I lost 5 pounds. I made some healthier choices. And later we're going to bring on and talk about, how to be better prepared. And maybe we could touch on this just quickly, Nick, is do you feel you were prepared for something like this mentally, emotionally, financially, or were you like blindsided?
Mentally, emotionally, I feel like I was prepared. Financially, I wasn't positioned the way I wanted to be, which is going to be great. There's going to be so many opportunities that come from that. But I remember, Rock, a few months ago, I had a dinner with a guy that actually trained Tony Robbins and how to wholesale real estate. So this is a high level guy. He's in the rooms that he needs to be in. So at this dinner, he was sharing with us that the market's going to crash. He was like, I'm at these meetings. Everyone thinks the market's not going to do well. And so I remember I called my family and I said, hey, I just want you to think about mentally prepare if the stock market gets cut in half, what are you going to do? How are you going to be? Are you okay with the position you're in? And so I just had my family mentally and emotionally prepare for that. Right. And I think that's important going forward, is to rehearse different situations in your mind, because if you make the decision emotionally in the moment, it's probably going to be the wrong decision, right? But if you're like, okay, if the stock market drops another 20%, how am I going to feel? What am I going to do? If it goes up another 20%, am I going to buy in, fear and missing out? Am I going to sell? Like, what am I going to do? And so to mentally prepare for different situations, we rehearse, right? Every time, like even being on this podcast, I'm mentally rehearsing, like I'm visualizing how it's going to go. I'm preparing for different situations. And so to use that visualization, that mental rehearsal for any situation that comes up, you're going to be emotionally prepared. And those fear emotions aren't going to drive you to make the wrong decision like they do with most of the market.
Yeah, great stuff. The comments are pouring in. People are reiterating what you said. It's really great. Thank you guys for participating and for putting that out there and reminding us some of the tools and tricks that Nick is giving us. So as we go through this, Nick, what do you think are some of the new choices people might make or you might make going forward? Are there things you're going to shift in your life because of this experience?
I think it's just going to strengthen my resolve to stick to the things that work, right? I think for everybody listening, it's not the resources that you have, it's the resourcefulness. And your level of resourcefulness is based on your emotional state. In NLP, we call them resource states. So to get through this situation, maybe better than you went into it in some way, you're going to have to find inner resourcefulness. And that means doing all the things we talked about, the body language, the mindset, the incantations, meditation, visualization, all of those processes are going to be incredibly important. And Rock, like you mentioned, playfulness, in spite of the fear, puts you into one of the most powerful resource states there is. We learn faster, we see opportunities. Anytime we can be playful, we're going to open the world up to new things that weren't there before. And so I would encourage everybody to make a decision to resolve to live in different resourceful states in this time. I don't think there's anything more powerful, because even if you have the right financial strategy, if you're not resourceful, you're not going to follow through. You're not going to execute on it. And so if we look at all the investors, everyone we look up to, it's because they find resourceful states inside themselves, not just the right strategies. And so I think everyone that's coming on after me is a brilliant financial mind, but if you don't have the emotional state to use their strategies, it's not going to matter, right?
So I remember going through this, I'll talk about this a bit with Mike, but going through this in 2008 and 9 when the meltdown was happening. I was working with T. Harv Eker. I remember sitting at the back of the room. I was learning how to become a speaker, and I was looking at the stocks go through the floor, and Las Vegas Sands went down all the way to $3. It's a company that owns a few of the hotels in Las Vegas. And I bought it at $3 and I sold it, I think, at $7 or $8. And I thought I was a freaking genius because I doubled my money. And it went on up to like $40 or $50 a few years later. And I'm like, right? So recently I looked at those stocks again. And yesterday I bought some Las Vegas Sands at $42. And literally half an hour later, I bought 1,000 shares. I sold it I made about $3,000 in about half an hour. And I'll talk about this with some of the other people that are better at this than I am, but I think there's still a lot of volatility. So I don't plan on staying in the market. Mm-hmm. But I do think that it doesn't make sense that these companies have gone down 50 or 70%. So for those people that are financially cash rich, which fortunately I was not last time, I am this time, which I'm very pleased on that. There's going to be some wonderful opportunities. You're a real estate guy. Yes. Have you had an impact on your real estate portfolio yet, or tenants or people blocking deals, et cetera, on the short term?
Not yet. I just had a 36 unit wholesale deal where I had a buyer back out, but I think I still have another buyer lined up. So I'm talking to sellers a lot, and for anyone listening, it's great to use this situation to increase urgency when negotiating, right? So people are fearful. So when you're going to negotiate a real estate deal, like, hey, the market's crazy right now. I can make you this offer. It's only good for 24 hours. Who knows what's going to happen? Right. And people are like, oh yeah, like I'll take it. I want to sell. I want to get out. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, so I haven't seen it shake out yet in my market. I'm anticipating people saying, oh, I can't pay rent. I'm anticipating sellers starting to panic a little bit more than they are now, just as this thing drags on. But Rock, like you talked about, emotionally, we generally tend to do the wrong thing in the markets, right? Like when that top's blowing off and you're like, oh, I have to buy, like that's when you know you're probably wrong, right? And when the market's crashing and your whole body's like, oh, I got to sell everything I own, like, everyone else is feeling the same thing, and that's when you're probably wrong. So it's important to use like T. Harv Eker's system, where you're constantly putting money into the different buckets and you're categorizing them, and you have discipline to that because you take the emotions out of it. And when you do that, you just can't get hurt as bad, right? When your money's spread around and you're safe, your emotions are out of your investing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're wrapping up your segment, what are some of the best things that, you're a hypnotherapist, you've done a lot of work with, the power of the unconscious mind. We are now being fed this information to get our attention. What are some of the things that people can do going forward, anticipating that this is going to probably go on for a few months? They're working at home, the cabin fever. They're going to have a lot of thoughts around what isn't happening, less loss, more never. What are some things that you can give them as some additional tips or guides going forward?
So yeah, if they're on this, they already know, but the people you spend your time with, you're a resourceful guy, Rock. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know what opportunities you're going after. And so I'm tuning into your content. And so everybody listening should find those people that they look up to and tune into their content, to feel empowered. The next thing is just to look for opportunities, look for ways to serve. Those two things right now, I think, are going to be the most powerful things you can use. And then go back to your routines, your morning routine, your Sunday system, everything that changes your emotions, and really stick to that. Really resolve to master that part of your life, because the opportunities will not be there if you are not in a powerful, resourceful state. And again, I think to just rehearse everything that could happen and how you're going to handle it. Now's the time to serve. Now's the time for people on this call to be leaders. And that all comes from being in the right emotional state, right? And the last thing is, I would say, I studied economics for a while, and there's definitely people on here that are going to be smarter than me, but I would say this is not investment advice, but government bonds are in a massive bubble. I don't think there's any upside to them. So something to think about.
Yeah. So where do, like, for me, I'm staying as liquid as possible in cash.
Yes.
And I'm going to wait until, there's light at the end of the tunnel and things start to look good. I don't need to catch the bottom. I'm fine with that. I'd rather catch it as it's rising out. Maybe wade my way in a little bit, pop in and out while it's choppy. But there's some people that just don't invest in the stock market. So are you referring to real estate? What are you referring to with their money if they have cash? I mean, going in bonds is like what, 1% maybe?
And it's I think gonna change. I think we're gonna start losing money by being invested in bonds before long. So cash is a great investment when people are panicking. Like, you think about it like, well, you can't make any money, but if the stock market gets cut in half and you're holding cash, your cash value just doubled relative to the stock market. You know what I mean? And we don't think like that. So yeah, find the investments that you want to be in and slowly start to work your way back into them over time, right? Like, we might not get back up to that top for 4 or 5 years. And so just knowing that, say, all right, if I make a little bit of investment every 6 months in these different buckets, I think you're gonna find the stability. You're gonna find great deals. Emotionally, you're not gonna be invested and put it all in at once, right, and make the wrong decision there. So I think real estate's still a good long-term play. I think we're gonna have this short segment where rates are incredibly low and people are incredibly motivated to sell. So we're gonna have low prices and low rates for a little while, and I think that's gonna create some real opportunities in the real estate market too.
Very cool. Now, you've been part of a mastermind group for a long time. You're hanging out down there with Chris, who is part of the mastermind group as well. How important has it been over the last few years being intentional about hanging out with people that are higher minded in their conversations and in their lifestyle?
Oh, it's everything. Hanging out with guys like you, I've gotten to be really good friends with some of the world's top hypnotherapists, and incredible opportunities and realizations about the mind, about their procedures. Like, these guys have been doing this, and you've been doing this for years and years, and I get to get all of your little insights with just a few conversations. It's like the only cheat code there is to getting smarter is by hanging around those people. So I think it's been massively important for me. And all of my best friends now come mostly from M1 or different groups or events I've been at, because we resonate together. I value their opinion. They're not in fear right now. They're finding opportunities. And so it's totally changed my mindset as well.
So what's interesting is that I think we may head in that direction more than ever. I've been doing this for 8 years with GoAbundance and M1, and our platform is well established. And now I think people are probably going to be going, how do I know for me, Natasha, my girl, she's already like, God, I don't want to hang out for 2 weeks in the house. I'm a high I. I need to be with people, man. I go, well, then jump on Zoom. She goes, I don't know, Zoom, if that's going to do it for me, So it's going to be interesting to see how people adapt to A, working, and B, just socializing. Is this going to be a new way? What's been your experience interacting with people on Zoom? Has it been sufficient for you? Do you feel a good quality relationship interacting on Zoom?
It's an okay proxy, but for me, like, I'm a 99I, and I study energy, and the way that I influence people is by getting into energetic rapport, and by being in the same space as somebody. It's just, for me, it's a totally different experience, right? Like, as humans, connection is how we feel the best. Like, when you and I are connecting, it's like, it's so fun. It feels amazing. There's nothing that feels better. And so Zoom can be, it's going to be great if that's your only option, but definitely being in proximity with people for me is so important. So I'm blessed to be down here with Chris Crawford versus being locked in my house at home alone. So yeah, I think finding any opportunity you can to connect, and Zoom is going to be the way to do that for a little while.
And I've watched you grow and expand your knowledge around, you know, helping people and your passion around that. So it's been really, really fun for me. We were on a radio show the other day together, so our paths are crossing just voluntarily as we hang out with very similar-minded people. So favorite book or something that people could maybe order from Amazon, something you think would be good for people to dig into right now, what would you recommend?
So the first book that came to mind is The Science of Getting Rich. I talk about that book a lot. There's a chapter in it, chapter 7, which talks about gratitude, how the grateful mind always attracts good things. And it's a short book, and that chapter's short, but it's so profound to remind ourselves to stay in that state of gratitude. The world's going to open up to you. The feelings in your body, like that worry, that disease, like it can't exist. It's like the radio station, right? You can't be on grunge rock and classical at the same time. So gratitude is my favorite way to move off of those fear-based emotions. Science of Getting Rich, chapter 7, will change your life if you stick with the philosophies in it.
And I love the fact that you go for the classics, right? So many books have copied or extracted from some of those books. But
Yes.
When was that book written?
That was actually before Think and Grow Rich. I think it was 1910. So one of the originals for sure.
Yeah, and it just shows the depth of your research and the work you've done to hone in and cultivate the ability to direct your mind and your unconscious mind. So huge namaste gratitude to you, brother.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Rock. I'm so grateful to have you and everyone listening to this in my life. Any way I can serve, I'm happy to.
I appreciate it very much. Thanks. Keep well, keep safe. Say hi to Chris.
All right, will do. Thanks, Rock.
Okay, cheers.